Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to share with you knowledge on our monitoring evaluation program. This is Module 3, Data Collection and Analysis. Now, in this particular module, we're going to be discussing data collection and analysis. And of course, these are essential processes in research, business, and decision making. And of course, in monitoring evaluation, we use data collection analysis as critical aspects of making sure we are able to make sense of the information we collect in the field and also make decisions for our project. So in order to collect accurate data and ensuring you analyze it, it will definitely help organizations and individuals make informed, evidence-based decisions. And of course, these are some of the reasons for which monitoring evaluation is very important in every organization and a project. So by the end of this lesson, we expect that participants should be able to understand the importance of data collection and analysis. We also expect that you'll be able to identify different data collection methods. You'll be able to distinguish between qualitative and quantitative data. Next, you also understand the key elements of an M&E report. Lastly, we have a test where you can be able to apply basic data analysis techniques to interpret results. Of course, you can collect your own data and of course, analyze it to practicalize your understanding of the subject. But let's talk about the foundation of data collection, which of course is understanding data collection. And just to lay the basics, data is basically raw information or figures or facts or information about specific phenomena. And of course, it can be qualitative, it can be quantitative. And we, in the context of M&E, we use data as source of as information for us to make informed decisions about project, and also we use data as a means of measuring performance, impact, and success of the project. So data collection basically is the process of collecting or gathering information from various sources, whether primary or secondary, to answer questions related to research, business decision, or monitoring and evaluation. So if you want to monitor and evaluate your project, you want to know whether your project is achieving the intended results. You want to know whether a project is making progress. You want to also know whether a project has achieved the outcomes and objectives. Then you need to collect data. So data collection ensures that the data used for analysis is accurate, relevant, and reliable. These are important principles you must be able to look after when you are doing data collection. The data should be accurate, should be relevant, and reliable. And of course, we're going to be making a lot of decisions about the data based on the data we collect. So we need to make sure the data is accurate, relevant, and reliable. Now, in terms of the types of data, we can look at two major sources of data. We got primary data and we have secondary data. So for primary data, these are information collected from first-hand sources or original sources through surveys, experiments, interviews, focus groups, observations, etc. So when you collect data firsthand from original sources using methods such as surveys, experiments, interview, focus groups, observations, you're actually collecting primary data. For secondary data, basically it means data from existing sources or external sources such as books, reports, and online databases. Now, data can be categorized into two major types. We got qualitative data and we have quantitative data. For qualitative data, these are data involving non-numerical information. That means data that has nothing to do with numerical information. So data such as opinions, experiments, or experiences, And then we also have observations. Those are basically data that we call qualitative data. So qualitative data basically focuses on non-numerical information. So those are interview responses, open-ended survey questions, and focus group discussion information. So all of those basic information you gather through observation. Of course, sometimes you observe, maybe collecting data based on observation, general observation, and writing down your opinions and experiences based on the observation. It is qualitative data. For quantitative data, it means numbers, okay? So these are numerical data that can be measured and analyzed statistically. So when you collect data that has to do with numbers and you are analyzing it statistically, it means that is numerical data. It is quantitative data. For example, sale figures, test scores, percentages, ratios, and the rest of that. So there are various methods used to collect data. And of course, we can talk about these methods. And these methods are used in different research, in different M&E activities, based on a specific reason for your monitoring and evaluation. So depending on why you're collecting the data, whether it's for research objective, whether it's based on the resources available, or the specific data type, this will determine the data collection method you can use. Of course, we have data collection method under qualitative methods, and we have data collection methods to collect quantitative data. So for you to collect qualitative data, which has nothing to do with numbers, there are methods you can use, such as interviews. Interviews are one-on-one discussions to gather in-depth insights and information from original sources. And oftentimes, we use tools like Notepad when we are collecting an interview. We can do audio recording, we can do transcription, and of course, we can use AI also to help us to be able to transcribe a data from voice to text. For focus group discussion, basically involves small group discussions for exploring opinions, attitudes, and experiences. And of course, we can use online tools like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, and a lot of other tools if it is not face-to-face. And then we have observations. Observation where you observe behaviors in natural settings without really interfering. You can definitely collect qualitative data through that. These are field notes. You can use field notes, of course. You can use video recording tools, tablets, and etc. So also case studies can be used to collect qualitative data. Case study could be studying a single subject or single group of people to be able to understand a particular topic that will inform you on what could be generally the situation in other areas. Of course, you don't have to study the entire country to determine a particular problem, but you can do a case study of a particular subject or a particular population or a group to be able to determine the real issue or the case scenario. So also we have document review, which is also a tool that you can use, meaning you can review existing documents or research papers, or you can review other reports that will inform you about the case in other areas. Of course, you can see the case in a specific area that could be relevant for your research or for your monitoring and evaluation activities. So for quantitative data collection methods, we can use surveys and questionnaires. Of course, we're using structured questionnaires or structured survey with numerical or multiple choice responses, which we intend to collect quantitative data. Tools we can use include Survey, Google Forms, of course, SurveyMonkey, Typeform, Quatrams, and a lot of other tools we can use to collect quantitative data using surveys or questionnaires. Also, we have experiments. Experiments can be done in a controlled test environment to measure variables. This can be done in the lab equipment or simulation software, which will help you to collect quantitative data. We also got existing data analysis using records, reports, and databases. Tools like Excel, SQL, and Google Sheets can help you analyze quantitative data. So in order to analyze data, we have different methods or techniques used to analyze qualitative data and quantitative data. So the nature of both of them are different. Of course, we use different methods to analyze them. Since qualitative data deals with experiences, opinions, comments, and other texture or other basic information that has nothing to do with numbers, we can use thematic analysis, like identifying patterns, terms, or themes in specific responses that we gathered from the responses. And also, we can look at the content analysis where we categorize or code textual information to be able to understand the issues coming from there. Of course, narrative analysis can also be useful to help us examine the stories, the experiences in the various data we are collecting. For quantitative data, since it is highly numerical, of course, is totally numerical, we need to use statistical approaches. And of course, you can use descriptive statistics, which will help you to identify the central tendency of that data, which could be the mean. Of course, you can find the mean of that data. You can find the media of that data. You can find the mode. Of course, you can find the percentages and frequency of that particular data due to help you easily analyze quantitative data. For tools, you can use Excel, SPSS, or Google Sheets to help you analyze that. For inferential statistics, it has to do with regression, correlation, and hypothesis testing. Of course, you can use SPSS also to do that analysis. You have data visualization, which is basically about the ability to visualize your information in a more graphical chart and also table-like form for easy analysis. So you can use Tableau, Power BI, Google Data Studio, and another form like Excel. Even SPSS can also help analyze data and visualize them. So there are common challenges in data collection and analysis. Of course, these common challenges are, they vary across different data collection processes, but you might find them in one or two experiences you may have had in your data collection process. And of course, they are not limited to these. There are a couple of other challenges you may have in your data collection process. But just to name a few, one is bias in data collection. If you are biased in your data collection, it might be a problem to gather quality, accurate, and reliable information. That is, if you have leading questions where you are trying to suggest the answer even before asking the question, you might not collect the right data from the people. Also, sampling bias, wherein you are trying to collect data from a specific group of people, or you're using a random sampling technique, but you decide to just talk to a specific group of people instead of randomly talking to people, you might also have a problem with the data you collect. So poor data quality also is a challenge, wherein the data is incomplete or is inaccurate, it's not totally complete, and you have a lot of missing information in your data. It can be a problem as well. If you have a lack of analytical skills, your inability to interpret results, like quantitative results, it can also hinder the process of data collection and analysis. Also, ethical considerations are very important. You need to look at the fact that you need to have ethical considerations like data privacy, confidentiality issue, informed consent, and a lot of other consideration or ethical considerations to make use of course. So just to summarize this, right, the key elements of an MA report, if you've collected the data, you've analyzed the data, of course, the next step is to develop the MAE report. So in developing an MAE report, you need to consider key elements. Of course, the MAE report is developed in order to help us understand the performance and the impact of our project. So whether it's a monitoring report or evaluation report, these key elements are essential. Number one, executive summary. Executive summary is basically a brief overview of your report, which highlights the key findings and the background and basic information about your report. Also, we got introduction. Introduction can cover the background, the objectives, and the methodology. Here, we can explain what the project is about, we can explain the exercise we carry out, and we can also explain the methodology used in a summary. And then the methodology session is to help us detail the data collection methods we use to collect the data, the sampling techniques we use, and also the analysis approach. Of course, you can mention tools like software and other relevant instruments used to collect the data and analyze the data. Then we got the findings and the analysis. Here is where you interpret the results based on what you've collected and what you have analyzed. And of course, you can present your results in visuals, like we said, visualization, where you provide charts, table, graphs, and the likes of them. You can also provide narratives in a form of context, where you explain the graphical data you have or the visuals you have presented in your report. Of course, your report can also be narrative, where you don't have to present more of graphical or visuals or stuff. You can provide more qualitative data. Of course, it's also accepted depending on the case. Then you have conclusions and recommendations. Conclusions, of course, are basically looking at what is a summary of your report? What are the key insights and what do you conclude? Then recommendations are basically what are your actions you're proposing in order to redress. Maybe there are some issues that you think needs to be done better. Of course, you can recommend different approaches, solutions, and a lot more. Then we have challenges and lessons learned. Of course, every monitoring and evaluation activities must be able to identify challenges and the lessons learned in that exercise. And yes, you can identify that through that the project implemented by drawing key takeaways from your evaluation or monitoring processes. And of course, you can also highlight some key challenges encountered during your MAD activities and during your project implementation. Lastly, is Appidaxis, where you have supporting documents, raw data, or additional information that will be useful for your report. Of course, you can include all the details in the report itself So you can have the annexes session or the appendices session to help you be able to outline extra information that will be useful for the reader to explore if they don't have all the answer in the report itself, or if they wish to see more information or the details that are essential for the exercise. Well, these are some discussion questions after completing this lesson. Number one, you want to try to answer these questions and they will be very helpful. One, why is it important to collect both qualitative and quantitative data? We talk about qualitative data being non-numerical data that helps us to collect from people, like learning from their experiences, opinions, and other form of data that is hard, that is non-numerical. Then we have quantitative data. We have said that quantitative data basically deals with numbers, and of course, it's numerical, so it's analyzed statistically. And we collect that data to be able to do. So why is it important to collect both data? Then number two question, what are some ways to reduce bias in data collection? We mentioned bias as one of the challenges in data collection and analysis. Of course, we said when you have leading question or sampling bias, you may have problem with collecting the right data that may be able to help you make the right decision. So the question is, how do you reduce bias in data collection? Number three, how can data visualization improve the interpretation of results? How can data visualization, like presenting data in table, charts, graphs, how can they improve the interpretation of results? And then what ethical considerations should be taken into account when collecting and analyzing data? Of course, we talk about some of the ethical considerations, but what are some of them you remember from the lesson and other things you feel should be? Lastly, this is a practical exercise you may think to do in order to apply your data collection and analysis knowledge you've gained in this lesson. So activity here is, number one, you have to design a survey or questionnaire on a chosen topic. And then number two, collect data from at least 20 individuals. And then number three, analyze the responses, identify the key trends or the themes. And then number four, present findings using a table, using chart or summary report that can be useful for your stakeholders. Thank you for completing this module. It's exciting for you to be here with us, and we look forward to seeing you in next lesson.